to the Crazy Agent Dinner Party.
Nobody helps you.
Part group therapy, part inspiration, entirely for real estate agents to dish on this crazy business we're in.
Yeah, actually. My mom would be like, Amanda, I cannot.
Come on in, have a seat at our table. And remember, real estate is crazy, and you don't have to be. Here are your hostesses with the most sizz, a combined 40 plus years in real estate, Coach Konversion Kourtney, and the real estate mom you never knew you needed, Amanda, the marketing mama. Our special guest today is Manny Sarnes, Regional Director of Home Team Lending, with over 20 years in the mortgage industry. On today's menu, we're dishing up how to choose the right lender to get to the closing table.
Thank you so much, Jenny, our trusty and beautiful sidekick. Agents, how was your week? I hope it was great. Well, we're here today to have a little bit of group therapy, and we're going to need it talking about lenders, but lots of inspiration and everything entirely for you real estate agents to hopefully help you sell more real estate and have so much more fun doing it. And today's special guest is my husband, Manny, my favorite lender, and he's been my lender for over 2 decades, which is wild. And we wanted to talk to you guys about the importance of pre-qualifying your pre-approvals. And so, Manny, for starters, why is it important to vet your lender?
Well, I think the most important thing is that, as realtors know, because they've all of you have had a deal blow up at the closing table, that
Not me.
Not you.
Yeah, because you've been using them for over
Right.
2 decades.
It's a little different. If I don't close your loans on time, I don't hear it for one day. I hear it for the next 40 years.
I will tell you, I can't wait to dig into this in a minute because I do have a story where I didn't. We'll get into that in a second.
So, listen, if you've had 5 deals, you've had at least one financed, and that means you've probably had the opportunity to have an extension or a delay based on the financing. So not all pre-approvals are the same. I just call them, it's really just a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And what I thought would be kind of interesting is maybe walk through the process of how to tell those pieces of paper apart. And really, it really doesn't really matter what's on the paper, to be honest with you, mm-hmm. because it really matters the answers that the agent gets when they actually talk to the lender. And I thought that's some of the things that we could talk about today. What would be more interesting in a lending space is how does a agent pre-qualify that pre-approval? How do they get to the bottom of what does really that paper mean, and how good is that buyer? Because all buyers are not created equal.
That is very, very true. So and I'm sure you probably do this too because you've been doing it a long, long time. Every single time that I'm working with a lender, even if I've worked with them before, I do call to get some specific questions answered. And it's so funny, like that not every agent does that because they just don't even think about it. They think that paper is gold. And the reality is we're all human. It's a human business. And not even if a lender is amazing, sometimes they could drop a ball, or maybe they're just not where they think they should be, but they just want to issue a pre-qual instead of a pre-approval. So truly, I mean, what are some questions that you ask? Do you call the if you're representing a seller, do you call the buyer's agent's lender?
Absolutely. And I think it's important too because we all know that the starting process with the buyer is obviously talking to a lender. So this is like your opportunity as an agent to get them off to the right start, right? Get them in touch with the right lender, somebody who gathers all the paperwork, gathers all the information, mm-hmm. and gets the pre-approval done instead of the pre-qualification. And there's a huge difference between the two.
It is. It eliminates so much heartache when you have all that information up front. Listen, I get it. Like, it sucks. I even hate having my credit pulled and all that good stuff. But knowing is power. Knowledge is so much power. And the more you know, the more that you're able to combat anything on your credit. Manny, how many people have we worked with that have been told that they could get it done and then no?
Yeah.
Nope.
Thousands. It was the power is not in the loan. The power is in the home. And we get it. Like, consumers don't want to talk about the loan. They don't want to talk about their divorce. They don't want to talk about their bankruptcy. They don't want to talk about the child support they owe. They don't want to talk about the car they repossessed last
their
year.
Their maxed credit cards, all that stuff.
They don't want to talk about that. What they really want to talk about is how they need a gated community.
Oh, yeah. Right? Pretty houses are so much more fun than credit card debt.
Yeah, talking with a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I say. Like, I get to do the fun stuff.
We do.
And the lender gets to do, like, the nitty gritty, which is, like, the most important piece of it, right?
The most important piece.
And so, yes, I talk to, as a listing agent,
mm-hmm.
I talk to the other lender when an offer is submitted because I want to know, are they pre-qualified or are they pre-approved? Have you gathered all the documents?
Mm-hmm.
Have you got them to a point where like we're not going to have any surprises at the end.
Okay, well, that was everything I was going to talk about today, so we can wrap up. You know what's crazy is listen, my whole job is talking to realtors. You know, I'm married to one. Most of my friends are realtors. When you've been in the business 20 plus years, it just happens.
It's kind of weird, right? Like all we do is hang out with
But here,
realtors.
I'll tell you, every realtor I talk to, friends, colleagues, they all say, of course I call the lender. I am the lender. Less than 25% of you call. Less than 25% of agents, listing agents, call us to ask any questions about a pre-qualification lender. So I know that you all are saying you're calling, but you're really not. And you're doing your seller such a disservice because, 50% of the lenders out there are amazing, but not all of them are. And so these questions are vital.
Well, let's talk about some of the questions. So first of all, Kourtney, give us the skinny on difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification. You know,
From my standpoint, I'm not a lender.
she does not play one on TV.
Pre-qualification is just gathering the initial like
Credit.
What do you make? Let's pull credit, and not getting the actual documents. And
Not
so, like,
backing it up with actual paperwork. Because here's what's so crazy: what we don't realize is, as being the realtor, you might have a teacher, somebody that has like a regular job, like they know what they make. Maybe they forgot that they went to Denver to see their good buddy for 2 weeks, and so they didn't work a full 52 weeks. And so maybe that income that they thought they had might be just slightly under what it really shows up as, because you have to document everything. Document. That's like the rule of the game in lending. And so you could be thinking, well, yeah, this is what they make, this is what they're doing, they'll be fine. And then they fall in love with the house that they are just, 20 grand underqualified for. And then everybody
it's a
is
waste of
sad.
everybody's time, right? And it's important that they have the pre-approval instead of pre-qualification, even before I put them in the car, right? Like,
Well, usually,
because
yeah.
we want to know that if we're showing them the property and then they fall in love with the property, then we want to make sure that we can get them the property.
Right.
Because that's the worst, is having somebody in your car, you take them to show a property, they absolutely fall in love with the property, and then find out that they don't even qualify for it.
Well, it's like, listen, I love my Maserati, but like I didn't just go and drive a Maserati. I made sure I could qualify for that Maserati. Can you imagine going and trying to get a Maserati and then basically you qualify for a Pinto? I mean, that's a pretty extreme or whatever. I mean, I'm
Since
exaggerating.
1978.
I'm exaggerating to prove the point, but that is really the point, is that you don't want to fall in love with something that you can't buy. But again, it's just, there's some questions. There's some questions
And
that
so,
you can ask.
Manny, take it from here. You are the lender. You are the expertise. And
I would-
So what is it, the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval, and then what is the process in the pre-approval?
Sure. So let me start off with, I truly believe that the statement I hear every realtor ever tell me is that buyers are liars. It was drawn for lending, right? It's really because they actually know how many bedrooms and bathrooms they want. They know where they want to live. And they know what kind of house they want. What they were not being honest about, and sometimes it's not their fault, they're not being honest about their income or their assets. When they tell me they have 20 grand, what they mean is they want to have 20 grand one day.
Or it's underneath my mattress.
Yes. So again, the piece of paper that you get, I guess, my age, okay. The email you receive.
Yes, thank you.
From the lender. It's either going to be, as Kourtney said, a pre-qual, and it's exactly, it's a credit report and not much else.
Well, and whatever they said.
Yeah. So where do you work? I work for General Hospital, and I make $1 million a month, and that's what I put on the application.
I think you're qualified.
Yeah. And so, but it's really a little less dramatic, right? So I manage a Starbucks, and I make, $70,000 a year, let's just say. So, okay, that's what you tell me. And with the pre-qual, I'm gonna put that over to the realtor, but I've not seen the income. I've not seen the down payment. I'm just using what the consumer told me. And so pre-quals, I don't ever recommend my realtors going under a pre-qual. Gas is too expensive. Your time is too valuable. And the difference between a pre-qual, which is a credit report with no supporting documentation, and a pre-approval, in today's day and age, if we're going to be really honest, I can pull up my pay stubs on my cell phone through ADP app, and I got a Bank of America app. I can pull up all my bank statements. I can pre-qualify myself in about 10 minutes using apps on my phone, and most of you can too. So the difference between that pre-qual, which threatens your time and frustration and energy, and the pre-approval is probably 1 day max.
Yeah.
Once you get the income, and it's real simple, it's pay stubs, 2 years W-2s, and 1 month's bank statement. It's a pretty generic form of documentation. Those few documents you can pull off your cell phone, prove that the income you told me is accurate, that it's documentable through the guidelines of the loan you're trying to qualify for, and that the assets you have, you actually have them. And so when I write that, which is a pre-approval letter, Kourtney, now when Kourtney calls me as a listing agent, said, are they pre-approved? She feels so much better when I say, I've documented down payment, I've documented income, these buyers are good to go and ready to close in 30 days or less. That's the kind of conversation you want to have with a lender, right?
I would say number one question that I call when I ask is like, have you verified income and assets? Assets is huge. Not necessarily everybody has the liquid right then and there, but there should be a game plan as to how that's going to happen. Absolutely. Because I always say you can't buy houses with hugs and kisses. You have to be ready, willing, and able to buy, and that involves usually money of some sort.
Here's what a lot of agents do, and I know as a young lender, I did this, and probably everybody knew in our industry did. Well, you know, my buyer, he's got a great job and he drives a great car. Like, let's say he's a doctor and he drives a Mercedes, so I'm sure he can qualify. Wow. Listen, there are some people you would never guess it. You know, they pull up in an old used car and they don't look like anything, and those people qualify just fine. And then the good doctor in the Mercedes has you know, $2,000 a month in student loan debt and doesn't pay his bills. And so the car somebody drives, the way they talk, the type of house. So many times I get a call from, well, he's looking at $1 million houses, so he's fine. No.
He could be
$1 million
absolutely
homes are
crazy.
very hard to qualify for.
Right.
And they're jumbos, guys, which means there's a whole level of scrutiny that goes on top of that.
Extra level of
Some
scrutiny.
jumbo loans require 12 months reserve, so not only you're 20% down, you're $200,000 on that $1 million home, but 12 months mortgage payments in the bank, certain mortgage payments. So yeah, it's so many times when we're young in the business, we're so excited to have this higher end buyer or this more affluent buyer.
I got a live one.
We just assume.
Yeah.
And I would say, guys, listen, it literally is the matter of 24 hours in technology today to get a buyer pre-qualified or pre-approved. And I always, it hurts me to answer those phone calls on agents when they're excited making an offer. And then I have to tell them, oh yeah, by the way, he probably does qualify if his credit score wasn't 450.
Oh,
Or
ouch.
yeah, you know, the money for the down payment, he actually does have that. He's the scary one. He's getting it in a settlement.
Oh, golly. Okay.
Right.
Well, listen, but we've closed tons of those people. You just
Yeah.
have to be, you can't, the timing of it is so important.
timing.
So that's another question that I asked. So let's talk about the timing. So sometimes they're getting a settlement. Sometimes they need to season funds. Sometimes they have to wait for a raise at work or something like that. Sometimes, you know, there's so many things. Sometimes they're getting it from a 401k. Timing is another question that you should ask because that's a part of your negotiation tactic.
I think, and that's kind of one of the things, what I train my agents to is I say, what you really want to do, and to just break it down into like a really simplistic form here, and that is this. You want to vet, you want to pre-qualify your pre-approval. So if I were going to break it down into 3 simple steps for a realtor to understand, this is what I train my home team partners, the realtors that work with us as the preferred lenders, to do. First off, throw them a curveball. Call that lender on a night or a weekend. Because when is real estate sold, ladies?
Nights and weekends.
Nights and weekends. Because your
Weekend
buyer,
warriors.
hopefully he's got a job. That's how we're going to qualify him. And so I first say throw them a curveball to begin with. Call or text them on a night and weekend. If they respond, you're 80% of the way there. Right? Because
True.
you need a loan officer or a lender that will work with you nights and weekends. Once you get that one else on the phone, 3 things. 1, have you, Amanda, seen income and asset documentation? Hopefully the answer is yes. If the answer is yes, then we go to the second one. Are there any contingencies as an agent I need to be aware of? So if you're a buyer's agent, and I recommend the buyer's agent make this call too. Because as a buyer's
100%,
agent,
yes.
what contingencies might I be worried about? As Amanda said, well, a contingency might be, well, they got to sell their house first. So the down payment from their house, for their new house, is coming from the sale of their old house. And we're in Florida right now, so maybe not every state has this, but here, a lot of our buyers are selling houses in Colorado or in New York. And so now you're aware of, oh my God, I got to call that agent in a different state.
Oh
right?
my gosh. But it's so important to call that other agent so
Absolutely.
you guys can work as a team. That is like the
I said that's the difference between
icing.
good and great. A
Oh my
good
gosh,
agent
yes.
will say, okay, sell the house in New York. A great agent will call the agent.
who's
in New
your
York.
agent? They're my new best friend. We're gonna make this happen for you.
So,
Yeah.
so a number. The curveball is call 'em on a night and weekend. The first question is, have you verified income and assets? The second question is going to be, are there any contingencies? Like, do they have to sell a house? Bless my first home buyers, 50% of what we closed at Home Team. Do they need seller concessions? A lot of first home buyers, they can come up with that 3 to 5% somewhere, but that's all the money they have. And so they might need seller concessions. Can we close in 30 days or less? Some buyers can't. They need to season funds. Is there anything with their assets that would delay them? Like, are they pulling it from a retirement account? These can take time. And so you can ask them, are there any contingencies on this approval, that would cost us time. Things like, again, waiting on a job offer, needing to sell a house, withdrawing money from a 401k, or possibly job changes. And if the answer to that is no, you're solid. And then the third thing that I would go into, is, are there any property types that as a realtor I need to be aware of? So again, not all approvals are created equal. The approval on a single family residence and a condo and a duplex and a manufactured home are all different. The rates and terms are all different, and the underwriting conditions are all different. Your standard approval is for a single family residence. Now, I know, because I do lots of beachfront condos, that condos, let me tell you a scary story. So I often will get the frantic call from an agent. It's typically 4 days before closing.
Yes.
And it is, my lender denied me, and my realtor said that if you couldn't do it, nobody could do it. Which is, I love the confidence, but now I'm like, okay, great. You're going to send me a
Wish you would
very
have caught us 30 days ago. Yeah.
You're going to give me a very difficult buyer because they've already been denied somewhere else, and now you're going to close them in 4 days. Challenge accepted. Unfortunately, this poor woman who had already signed a listing agreement to sell her house in a different state.
Oh gosh.
She did have a pre-approval, a valid pre-approval from another bank. It really wasn't necessarily their fault for $500,000. She went under contract at $489, under the $500,000. The problem was the condo she put under contract had $1,000 a month homeowners association.
Woo.
So, we've all had these buyers, in the lending industry that, kind of cause problems. So,
Or they fall into your lap because somebody else said that they could do something and they couldn't do it.
So, I get this call, which is a call I love. Thank you so much for my realtor partners. Hey, Manny, I just went under contract about 30 days ago. I have a closing next Tuesday, and my current lender just denied me. Which again, I love the fact that the realtor thinks so well of me, they want to give me the opportunity, and I love a challenge. But now it's a stressful situation, right? So we have a buyer who's expecting to close in a week. They got denied by the current lender, and it's probably a challenging loan. That's why the other lender denied it.
And obviously, if they had just vetted that lender, maybe they could have avoided this.
Well, that's what we're trying to teach today. And so this was I need to find out an entry. Is this really a buyer that doesn't qualify? Is it a problem with the lender? What's going on here? And so when I dig into the file, this poor woman had her home on the market to sell. It was under contract. It was closing next week as well. So the domino effect, a lot of stress. And so as I dig into the file, I find out the problem is that she had a $500,000 pre-approval, verified income and assets with another lender. So why did she get denied for her $489,000 purchase? We'll come to find out with a little bit of research. It was a $489,000 condo with $1,000 a month homeowners association dues.
That's a pretty big deal.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
It really blows me away that wasn't known when they went under contract.
Again, it should have been. That's typically something, knowing it's a condo happens immediately. There's normally a unit number on the contract. Typically, if you don't know as the lender, let's say you're not local, there's no unit number, you'll find out through title pretty quickly. I don't want to throw the sender under the bus, but I do know that the pre-approval he wrote at $500, I understand why it didn't go through. He wasn't counting for $1,000 a month homeowner association.
Yeah, but
so,
when he originated the loan, was that not in it? That's
no, I mean, listen, I think there's plenty of blame to go around. What we were trying to do is find the solution.
Right.
Right. We plenty of time to blame the other lender later, but I really felt bad for everybody involved because it was just a silly oversight that, of course, $1,000 a month HOA due would affect not only the debt to income ratio, but to be honest with you, this poor woman was never really made aware of what those true payments were going to be. She wasn't prepared for the extra $1,000 a month anyways. So I could not qualify her. The debt to income ratio was over 50%. She didn't buy this condo. She did circle back and buy a $500,000 single family residence with
the same realtor?
With the same realtor.
Right.
She was very upset at the lender. But again, this is not, I don't think this was an evil lender. I don't think this was a bad realtor.
It's human error. We are human beings and we make mistakes. That's part of it.
What I like about just your entire story, which how can you like anything about that?
Yeah.
What I like about your story is that you had mentioned it's not about placing blame because
Correct.
there could be blame placed on everybody, right? Everybody involved in the transaction.
Yeah.
It's about finding solutions. Every good realtor, every great realtor, every great lender will not sit there and spin their wheels on blame. They'll find solutions. And that's what I like about that.
I mean, one could say the realtor maybe should have made the lender know, hey, this is a condo. Maybe the lender probably could have saw on the contract unit 200 was probably not a single family residence. Title definitely told everybody because title told me within 2 days of contacting them. But unfortunately, this poor woman, she lost money. She probably lost some hair, right? She definitely was not happy when she left the closing table on the second house, because I don't know if you know, but a $500,000 condo is pretty nice. And a $500,000 house is actually not a bad house at all, not in any market. But this $500,000 condo was on a different level. I mean, $1,000 HO. So she actually did have to change her expectations of her living. And this is her forever house. This is where she was living in for retirement forever.
Oh my gosh, a condo would have been so much better.
It would have been. So again, I think that this buyer would have had a better experience had the buyer's agent contacted their lender, vetted, pre-qualified the pre-approval, asked him to make sure, and he did that. He admitted to me I had done income and assets, but the second question, nope, there are no contingencies. The only one I can be aware of is that she has to sell her home before she can buy a new one. But it was the third question they missed. Are there any property types or contingencies that you're aware of that would be a problem for my buyer? And so that answer being, yeah, I mean, this is really for a single family residence. Homeowners associations probably shouldn't exceed X. And listen, this is a job of inches, right? I mean, the difference between a buyer buying a house and closing and being happy can literally be $10 or $20 a month. In this case, it was $1,000.
Well, it's sticker shock, you know.
It
And
is.
again, we've talked about it before. Buyer's remorse is a whole thing. So, is it unrealistic? Do you feel as a lender for an agent to ask you if you have done a U.S. approval?
I don't mind it at all. Not at all. AUS, automated underwriting system. That would be any Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae kind of product. These are probably, I don't know the actual statistic, probably 90% of the loans that are done, at least in my world, are receiving AUS approve eligible. That means that that's a computer that generates, and we run the loan scenario through, and it tells you if it's a loan or not. Now, you know, that's faulty too, because as Amanda, we used to train on all the time, you know, if you put bad information in the computer, you get bad information out.
Yes, exactly.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with asking if the buyer has an AUS approval. I think it's good practice.
So, in a lot of these questions that we talked about, you don't normally get, but what is a question that I know you get a lot because it burns your biscuit so much, you talk about it all the time, what in it is, you know what it is?
What is the interest rate?
What are the interest rates?
What is my interest rate?
Well, from the realtor specifically, they don't ask you if you've got income or assets verified. They don't ask you, you know, what if there's any restriction on property type. They literally, like 3 weeks in, will ask you what's the rate.
And so let me tell you the equivalent in realtor terms of this. What's the value of my home, Amanda?
Well, where's the property?
No,
at?
I'm not going to tell you any of that. I just want to know the value of my home.
Well, how big is it?
Yeah. These are the same questions lenders have. Well, what's the credit score? What's the down payment?
Yeah.
What type of mortgage program
There's
are
so
they
much
going
that
with?
goes
Is it a
into it.
primary residence? Is it a condo, single family, or manufactured home? So the question of what are the rates, or you know, when a realtor injects themselves into the rate conversation, I cautious my agents to do that, because there are so many factors. Some of them private. Right? If you have a bankruptcy only 2 years ago, you're pigeonholed probably into FHA, where you can't go conventional. FHA may not be so there might be some
there's so many variables.
private reasons why this consumer isn't getting the rate they want that I can't always disclose to you as the agent. So I just caution agents to be cautious about rate. I would say it would be the equivalent of, so I do have a realtor, I know a friend of mine who gives 1% back, 1% of his commission to all of his buyers, right? 1% back. Well, I think that's very nice of him, but I don't ask all my realtors to do that.
And honestly, if you had a buyer that just complained just a hair about their realtor, if you said that to them, well, I have a realtor friend who gives back 1%, then
correct, they would run there.
that's
So I
just dirty pool.
There's
So in addition to never throwing anybody under the bus or not placing blame, I think maybe that icing on the cake that we should really consider is the vetting is important. But don't question the terms of the loan unless you are the lender.
I think it's important as agents. Lenders, they don't show homes. They don't pull homes. Like, they stay in their lane.
Right.
It's very important as an agent to stay in my lane. I may know that all of this is involved in obtaining an interest rate or what their mortgage payment is. I am never going to tell the buyer what their mortgage payment will be or what their interest rate will be. I stay in my lane, and I expect the lender to do the same.
Well, I've got a training class for you to come teach then, because I do respect that. Again, we tried it. Listen, most lenders, if you're doing business in today's market, you're a pretty good lender, I would say, in most cases. Rates are very similar amongst most lenders. I appreciate that. Stay in your lane. We as lenders should never tell a buyer that they didn't get a good deal on their contract, that they probably could have gotten all their closing costs paid for. That is not our place to say. We back our agents because we don't know the terms and the negotiating that it took to get under contract. And I think it's smart. It's good. If you can't back your lender the same way, then you should probably recommend a lender that you can back in that way.
I feel like that's our last bite, right?
I was just about to say, what a great last bite.
Find a lender that you trust, that you've built a relationship with, and somebody that you have their back and they have your back. Like, that's so important. And buyers know that, right?
Yeah.
Buyers know that. They know the relationship that you have with the lender, or what I have with the lender, and what you have with the agent.
That's right. And if you want a good lender for 20 plus years, you just have to marry them, and then you have a great lender. But if you don't want to go through that, again, please vet your lenders. Find the people that make you feel confident
and be comfortable asking the questions. So for our weekly to-go box, I'm actually going to put together my questions that I ask every lender, whether I work with them or not, about every buyer that I work with, because it's important before you waste your time or theirs to know that these things are done, because you need a ready, willing, and able buyer, because y'all, real estate is crazy.
And you don't have to be.